What's up, Shelf Addicts? Welcome back to the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Today on Book Chat, we are discussing the book We Begin at the End, written by Chris Whitaker. Stay tuned. Today's episode is sponsored by the book A New Renaissance, a celebration of African American fiction by Rhonda M. Lawson, and the Mocha Girls Read Book Club. 12 authors have joined forces to honor the trailblazers of the Harlem Renaissance with A New Renaissance. This beautifully written collection of original fiction, ranging from children's to contemporary, both by new and established authors, will make you laugh, cry, and even shout out loud. But most of all, it will make you proud that the griot tradition lives on and is here to stay. If you've been around the podcast for a while, you guys know I love a book that will make me react audibly. This sounds like it's sure to do that. Check out A New Renaissance, a celebration of African American fiction, available now on Kindle and in paperback on Amazon. Learn more about this title by visiting mochagirlsread.com and also pick up a copy on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and thank you for downloading this month's Buddy Read discussion featured here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. If you're new here, every week we get bookish with book discussions, book reviews, shelf bites, and more. If you're wondering what is a Buddy Read, this is a feature where Classy and I select a thriller or mystery title that we both are interested in. Then we have a candid conversation about that book or audiobook. We even discuss it in our Facebook group, Shelf Addiction Official, during a live chat. So grab a glass of wine, a cocktail, a cup of tea or coffee, whatever your drink of choice is, and settle in for this fun discussion. As always with book chats, there is a spoiler alert in effect, so you've been warned. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with your book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. That will really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing it. The uncut video version of this podcast is available now on Patreon. Join us there for exclusive videos, including this podcast after show. If you'd like to support the show in other ways, please consider doing that by supporting our sponsors. By supporting them, you are supporting us. Check out all of the sponsors at shelfaddiction.com/sponsors. If you've read the book or listened to the audiobook and would like to weigh in on this conversation, be sure to join the Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official. I hope to hear your thoughts on this discussion. Links for everything I've mentioned are in the show notes, so let's get going. We've got a lot to cover today, so we are going to jump right on in. Joining me is the Buddy Read feature co-host, Classy Green from the Bookish Virtual Assistant. Welcome back, Classy.
Hey, Tamara. Hi, everybody.
Hey, glad you're back again for another book.
Yeah, that's right.
Another thriller? Or, wait, crime? Mystery?
Or crime. Yeah, crime, fiction, mystery, yeah.
All right, so guys, today we are discussing the book We Begin at the End, written by Chris Whitaker. The audiobook was narrated by George Newbern. It was published March 26, 2020 by Henry Holt & Co. and by Macmillan Audio. It comes in at 384 pages in hardcover, and the unabridged audio is 10 hours and 30 minutes long. Classy, would you kindly share the synopsis with us?
Absolutely. There are two kinds of families, the one we are born into and the ones we create. Walk has never left the coastal California town where he grew up. He may have become the chief of police, but he's still trying to heal the old wound of having given the testimony that sent his best friend, Vincent King, to prison decades before. Now, 30 years later, Vincent is being released. Duchess is a 13-year-old self-proclaimed outlaw. Her mother, Star, grew up with Walk and Vincent. Walk is in overdrive, trying to protect them, but Vincent and Star seem bent on sliding deeper into self-destruction. Star always burned bright, but recently that light has dimmed, leaving Duchess to parent not only her mother, but her 5-year-old brother. At school, the other kids make fun of Duchess. Her clothes are torn, her hair's a mess. But let them throw their sticks because she'll throw stones. Rules are for other people. She's just trying to survive and keep her family together. A 40-something-year-old sheriff and a 13-year-old girl may not seem to have a lot in common, but they both have come to expect that people will disappoint you. loved ones will leave you, and if you open your heart, it will be broken. So when trouble arrives with Vincent King, Walk and Duchess find they will be unable to do anything but usher it in, arms wide closed.
All right. Okay, I feel like I have a lot to say about this book, and I really haven't had a whole lot of time to digest it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I was scraping by at the scraping by like moments before you got on. So high level, before I tell you why it took me so long to get this thing finished. High level, when I finished the audiobook, the 3 minutes I had left, I thought I think I had a good idea what was going on, but I didn't know all of what was going on. I didn't realize it was such a big circle of things, like layers of things, and I was pleased with the fact that I could not guess everything. Mm-hmm. And overall, I thought the story was well constructed, but I also thought it dragged in places, and some things were too long. Yep. Some areas didn't need to be explained.
Yeah.
I recently read this thing that someone had said books should be able to do or tell, show or tell, not show and tell.
Yeah.
So I feel like there was a lot of extra exposition in some places that made it drag a little, but high level, I enjoyed it. What about you?
I would say the exact same thing while listening to this book. I could see this as a movie. I felt like I was reading a manuscript for a movie because, he laid out everything he wanted us to know in this book, from the scenery to the dialogue to, visually. And I too felt like this book could have been 2 hours less audio wise, probably 100, maybe 150, pages wise. As a reader, character development, wonderful. We knew every character. We knew every character down to the man from the 70s, the next door neighbor to, it was I'm not sure if we didn't know anyone well, except for maybe the sheriff's assistant, the one who gave Dark the information. But all the other, the main characters, you can't doubt him on character development. But yes, it was too long, too descriptive. And it's do you really say that about a book?
Yes, I think it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just say, for me, it was a very slow start. I actually
know. Gosh.
Well, first off, let me show you guys. For those of you that are watching, I have this many notes. This many.
Yeah.
I have a lot of notes. And I like when books make me take notes on one hand, and on the other hand, I hate it. Because at first it's there's so many things going on and so many people, I can't keep them straight initially. It takes a while for it to seep in. So the first 5 chapters were pretty hard for me. I feel like things started moving around chapter 6, midway through chapter 6. And that's kind of when, I'm like, oh snap, Duchess and got a gun. I knew when she was talking to Vincent and she's like, I'm an outlaw. And he's like, oh, you're an outlaw? I got something for you. Hold on. I said, oh, he gonna give her a gun. I knew it.
Yeah.
Did you think that too?
I did. And I too felt like that. It was so much going on that I found myself rewinding because I'm I missed something. I know I missed something. And at first I was just coasting. And then I think you even text me where it just felt like I'm listening, but I'm not absorbing what the story is about. And I said, you know what? Because he's given us so much at the beginning that I got to pay attention. And come to find out, he gave us so much throughout the whole damn book that you had to pay attention. And yeah, it did drag to a point where, and I know we're going to talk about the narrator later, but to the point, it lulled me to sleep. And I had to wake up and I had to go rewind. And then I'm like, but it's a good story. And I don't know if it was just that mellowness of the narrator. He was just giving us just so much stuff. And I'm just like, get to the meat. It
was info dump, like literally. So, we know how people looked. We know what they had for dinner. We know how she's got the hot dogs and the buns and couldn't get the ketchup. We know, so
he needed a
details.
Haircut. So-and-so had a limp. He wore his leather jacket I was just like, this would be a perfect movie. Because, I mean, if you didn't know how to do the scenes or whatever, you're crazy because this man just did it all for you.
He did.
Yeah.
So, in that respect, because it's a balancing act, I think. You want to give enough where the reader can visualize what you want them to, but not so that a movie person cannot have creative license because every single thing is spelled out. Right. And even in our imaginations, like there's nothing for us to imagine because it's literally spelled out.
Yeah. I was just going to say the same when you said, the producer or the director has no creative license. And we didn't even, as a reader, like I couldn't picture, like how I saw something or how it would end. Because as, in books, it's our escape. And, there was no room for imagination in this book for character wise. But yeah, it was a lot of word vomit. Oh, okay, not vomit. I'll take that back. I'll regurgitate what I just said. I'll rephrase that. No, he did. He just did. It was a lot of verbiage. I had started taking notes and characters, and then I'm just like, nope, it's just too much. Because I would be like you, I'd be constantly writing and not able to listen. So then I began to kind of coast and just kind of try to, what did they say? Eat the meat and spit out the bones, And that's what I was trying to do. And I know I probably missed something, but then in the end, it was like, oh, okay, that's it.
Yeah. And I also feel like his transitions could have been better. So those transitions didn't translate well on audio. Because there were several times where I'm like, wait a minute, is this a different character? And I would have to hit rewind like by a minute.
Yep.
And then I would hear where it changed over, but you can't like passively listen.
No.
Because you'll miss it. You'll be like, wait a minute.
Yep.
This is something different.
Yeah, it was. The transitions were awful. And the narrator didn't help us with, that transition either, where you knew so-and-so was speaking versus Walk versus Duchess. Except for we knew it was possibly Duchess with a few lines or if I'm an outlaw. But, some of the other stuff, there was no difference in cadence or inflection. He wasn't horrible, but yeah, that transition. And then I read a review somewhere where someone said, even because they read the book, that his use of run-on sentences ran a gamut in the book. And he said, I guess they had watched a YouTube interview or something, and he said, that the editor, because I guess he's from England or Britain, he's not an American writer. Okay. And he mentioned that the editors kind of helped him with his Englishman writing. But she said she's like, I think I'm a pretty smart reader, she said, but I felt like a dummy reading this book because she said she felt like she had to reread sentences over and over to get what he was saying because of the run-on sentences. Yeah. So you're correct. You have the same feeling of the transition was done poorly.
Yeah, it was very difficult. And I think all of these little things, even though I originally started listening at 1.75 because the narrator was slow. So I said, okay, I'll speed it up. But then I'm like, okay, this isn't working. I'm like, the cadence was better at 1.75, but like, I mentioned to you, I felt like I was hearing, but not listening.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I've got to slow it down. But at that point, I'm like, I'm not going back to the beginning. I've wasted enough time. So
and I tried that too, but I was like, I'm not going to finish on time. If I go back, if I go any slower, I'm not going to finish on time.
And so at about chapter 4, when I was complaining to you, I slowed it down to 1.5. And I listened to the rest of the book on 1.5 up into the last hour and a half. I put it to 2.0 because I felt like I knew the characters well enough. I was used to the narrator.
Yeah.
I could blast through the end. But all of these little things, because, both of us, we start an audiobook only a few days before we record.
Right.
Because usually I can get it done in 2 days, usually.
Exactly.
But this took a lot more. It really, I got it done in 3, but I really needed 4. I really needed 4 days.
Yeah, to get the gist of it. And I felt like after listening to this book, I felt like this was a book that was better probably read versus listened to. But then after reading that lady's review, I'm like, but I think I don't know. I probably would have fallen asleep even more with all the narrative and the description, and it was like, okay.
It's a toss-up. I thought exactly what you did. I said, well, maybe if I read it, but then I thought, well, maybe I just would have been falling asleep trying to read it. So, and it's like really one of those things where I feel like this is like borderline literary fiction, right? There's some crime.
Yes.
It's definitely crime. It was very literary fiction-y in the fact that it was very wordy, which makes this more difficult than it needs to be. So
yes. Right. And that's what I was saying. Like, I felt like this was a very different mystery crime fiction book that we've ever listened to. And that's where I struggled with the rating, because it was like his writing was great, but he kind of was dipping into different genres, and I'm just like, ooh. But you guys marketed this as a mystery, which it had a mystery element, but it was very, I'm trying to think of which author I could compare it to, but it was very literary. It had a very big literary element to it. Even almost had like a little, I don't know if you felt that, like a little Western feel when they went over to Montana and the sheriff and the outlaw, and I was like, yeah.
Definitely. And I definitely, I'm usually a stickler for timing, but I really found that I had to just let it go because I was having a hard time figuring out how much time passed until toward the end. Like, there was one section where they were talking about how spring bled into summer. And then there was another part, like they were saying, well, it's been a year for the trial. But it took like a while for me to get my bearings on how much time was passing. And that also bothered me. Yeah. But I really tried to tamp it down. Because I was just trying to just accept what you're given and quit asking additional questions. Yes.
I felt the same way, because and it hit me when they mentioned that Duchess was 14. And I'm like, damn, it's only a year? Because it felt like so much longer. And that was because of all of the dialogue and the description and all the minutia in between. So yes.
I mean, honestly, I'm surprised he actually got to trial in less than a year. Some people sit in jail for a full year before they even get to trial.
Exactly. But this was a little small town, because remember when the murder was committed, they took it away from him because they're like, you're a small town chief, so we'll take over from here.
The
So
state
probably
police said, leave it to us.
Yeah. So they probably didn't have enough, trials, to perform or whatever. But yeah, I too, I was like, a year? The girl is 14?
Fair, Walk didn't know how to run an investigation.
No, he was too personal.
It literally took his girlfriend saying, get your shit together, man. Like, you're supposed to be investigating. What are you doing? You're not investigating.
He was too close to the case. He was way too close. So, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
So we talked about the things we did not like for the first 20 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll take a little break. We'll check out these commercials. You guys head on over to Amazon and check out the book review journal. And when we come back, we'll talk about the stuff we did like. We'll talk about how the mystery shaked out in the end. We'll review it and give our final say so on it. So we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item. Welcome back, guys. So, things that we liked about We Begin at the End. One thing that I noticed, I literally wrote it down every time the words "we begin at the end" came up. And it came up 3 times. I'm like, 3 separate times, chapter 11, 25, and 27. I'm like, how many times are we going to say this book title?
Right, because a lot of times you don't see that in books. Like, you got to figure out why they wrote this or titled this, that. And so, yeah. It
made sense every time it was used, we begin at the end kind of thing. And I don't know if that's maybe a phrase that people just turn a phrase they use or, I've not heard it, but that doesn't mean the author hasn't heard it.
Right. I've never heard it either. And I should have looked it up, but I did not. So yeah, I noticed that too, because I'm a big stickler for why is this book titled that way? Was it mentioned in the book? Do they help us understand why this title was given? So yeah, that was something I did enjoy. Are you looking it up?
I am.
Okay. Yeah, I also wonder after reading this and finding out that he is I believe, English British, if that is the same writer. I wonder if that's something that they state. I know the grandfather mentioned, didn't he say his pastor said that we began at the end?
Well, at the funeral, the minister says that.
Yeah.
At the mother's funeral. And then the grandfather says it, after he is grilled by Duchess about where were you? How come you didn't, he says it then. And then I think Duchess herself says it.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And it kind of reminds me of a statement that my uncle kind of mentioned. He's like, we're born with the expiration date. Mm-hmm. We're just, it's, soon as we get here, we know we're not going to be here long.
Right.
That our time is limited. So kind of, but I'm not sure. So what did you find with this phrase?
Nothing. Looks like he might have made it up because
you didn't find anything.
No, nothing. It all has to do with, questions about the book. So I'm going to say maybe that's his own phrase, maybe. Okay.
So when you, after hearing it 3 times, what is your conclusion that this title means?
It's kind of murky. I feel like each person that said it had a different kind of intention for it.
Okay.
So I guess it's just, I almost want to say it's just like too late to cry over spilled milk kind of thing. Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain because it's such an odd way to say something. Like we begin at the end. So the end is a new beginning. I don't know. Or
or it's never too late. Like just because. That. Yeah. I mean, the more I think about it, it's like when the grandfather said it after she said, "Where were you?" And then come to find out he had been coming the whole time and she didn't know it. Here he has a chance to, start all over, or it's not too late.
Yeah, it's not
just when you think
late.
It's
we can start now.
Mm-hmm. And now we can think about it with the
now.
We can begin now, right?
Yeah.
Just when you think it's over or you're at the end of this, we can begin, and that's kind of, like with her father. She didn't even know who her father was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think her mother was wrong. Her mother was wrong. I feel like, and I know she was young, but this girl had so much going on. She had an old soul. She was a lot older, and she could have taken that information. You know what I'm saying? She would have been able to tolerate it, how much she was doing. She was like a young adult, like a mother figure to her little brother.
Yeah.
Because her mother was so whack. So that's unfortunate. I feel like that could have prevented a lot of this.
Yeah, it could have. But, and it seems like from what we hear, Mom started out okay until Vincent didn't want to see her anymore.
Her.
Yeah.
Move on with your life.
Mm-hmm. And then she just lost her mind, basically, and just went into drugs, hard life. Bad men. But yeah. Little
That's
Duchess
really
was
unfortunate. It says a lot about Star's personality. Because I don't think, although yes, it would have been nice had he not done what he did, I don't think he's responsible. She's a grown adult with 2 children.
Yeah. And I mean she was pretty scarred, between the death of her sister. And her sister was, died at the hands of her boyfriend. Her father, and then you have to deal with the shunning of your parents. Because, I mean, you still love this boy who accidentally killed your sister, but you also have to be loyal, to your parents. So I did have some compassion for Star. Because I can't imagine your mindset or, just like, how do you deal with that? And then her mother committed suicide. So, she had a running list of tragedy, trauma that happened in her life. So I can see her turning to drugs and bad men and struggling.
See, it's so sad to me. I'm like, that could have been resolved with some therapy. And like, I couldn't understand why. Okay, so the little boy, they know, Robin, he needed therapy and they put him in therapy immediately. Because like, oh, he's had trauma, but so had Duchess. Why did he not put her in therapy too? Why not?
Yeah. And that's because he saw he was in the house when it happened. So they were probably just thinking,
I'm sorry.
And I think they were hoping to get some kind of evidence or, hoping he would reveal who the killer was. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think that was the primary reason they put him in therapy. I feel like the way she was acting toward Hal, if I were Hal, the grandfather, she would have been in therapy. Because she was such a little brat to him. I burst out laughing in some of those scenes. I'm like, damn.
Okay, those were some of the things that I love. The dialogue, like, little Miss Duchess.
She went in. She giving people the finger. She calling people cunt. She like, I don't give a beep.
You don't have any right to say whatever. And I was like, she is saying all the things I wanted to say as a kid.
I couldn't believe she called her grandfather. I couldn't believe it. He just took it. He took it all.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Because he too had faced such tragedy. So he was kind of like, okay, I'll be your punching bag. I'm going to be the punching bag. I guess I'll just be the punching bag. But that was, now that we want to talk about some of the things that we did like, that little girl in her mouth, yes, she was a little spitfire, but and I mean, she was no respecter of person. Everybody got that. Everybody
got the finger. Like, even at school, the scene where her brother is like being picked on by the bully, she goes over and whispers to the bully, and then she's in the principal's office, and he's
right, because he said, you said blah, 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 expletive. She said, I called him a motherfucker.
Yeah. She said, I didn't say expletive.
Expletive.
And the grandfather's like, oh, good. What did you say?
I called him an MF.
Oh, my God. She didn't hold any punches.
No.
She's...
No.
Wow.
And I was just like, like, if I could just be Duchess at this age, at my age, like, just let it all hang out.
I can't lie. I respect it. Although she is a child and should not be doing it.
But you know what? She was a child in a woman's body. You know, like you were saying, she was 13, but she was the adult in that home. So she got every, like, I hate to say she had every right, but shit, she was the damn mama.
She was.
Mm-hmm. And she knew her brother's birthday and the mama did.
I know. That's wild. It's so crazy. But because as soon as things start to shift, I just knew they would not have that happily ever after with the grandfather, because she was starting to soften toward him and like admit it. She's like, oh, I want to cuss him out basically, but I won't.
She's like, I meant everything I said, but I kind of like, basically.
Right. She's like, I'm not taking anything back.
Yep.
But
you're still you're
not bad.
But you're right. But I kind of like you.
Right. I'm like, maybe there's hope for them after all. And I think it was because, honestly, he empowered her. So she's cursing him out. He's like, let's go shoot these guns, right? I want y'all to be comfortable. Let's do it. And then she cussed him out some more. He's like, let's teach you how to drive.
Yeah, because he felt like he saw his daughter in her, and that she needed some kind of outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that what she had just went through and all that, that she needed something to, that you're right. I did like that relationship that they had. He let her, even though he said, I don't allow cursing in my house, because I was waiting on that because, church and blah, blah, blah. But eventually he was like, pick and choose my battles, and he decided her cursing is the least of my concerns. But like you said, when I say this out loud, she should have went to therapy, but I don't think it was an option that he thought of, because Walk immediately told him that Robin needed therapy.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't sound like he even had therapy. I mean, his wife committed suicide. He lost a daughter. He, their therapy was church basically.
But he wasn't even that churchy. I feel like he went to church, like, because trying to get something out of it, right? Mm-hmm. But he wasn't a churchy guy. He wasn't. No. He went. No. He did what he was supposed to do, I think. Mm-hmm. Yep.
He did it out of rote memory. He probably was raised in the church or was told to go. We go to church on Sunday. We say our prayers.
Right.
Don't get my wings. I've done everything I'm supposed to do, So, but yeah.
I checked the boxes. I should be good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. He got them their church clothes. Y'all pray at night. We go to church on Sunday, and we shall be getting our wings.
What do you think about Duchess and her temper? I feel like they're temper tantrums, essentially. Like, when she has to confront something that is not fair or right, she just goes off and thinks that's the one thing that shows she's a child. She cannot think 2 steps ahead, right? She only thinks right now. What could I do to sting you right now? she's not thinking ahead. Like, I think about the one situation where the little girl that they were staying with the Prices, and the daughter went around saying, "Oh, you wet the bed, nah, nah, nah," and she like, "I did." So she's like, "You want me to tell you why I wet the bed?" And she told this blatant lie about the father in that house. I'm like, now that's crossing the line. That's wild, girl. What are you doing? That was like, I felt like that was just one step too far for this character. Like, why did she have to say that?
Yeah. And I thought that too. And I was like, is he trying to was that a red herring? Because earlier, Dark, remember Dark had dated another woman and they interviewed her and she had said he was different. And she said, but he cared about kids, like what man takes a liking to your kids so fast, and she said she came in and he was watching Disney with the kids and one of the girls was on his lap and I'm like, oh crap, please don't tell me Dark was a child molester. So I was wondering, like, with that and then that statement, was that a red herring? Because that's like a big red flag, like for a child to make that kind of statement. So yeah, I thought, it was wrong, but I was like, did he try to throw in a little red herring there?
Well, I was trying to figure that out at the beginning because, Dark was abusive to her mother, right?
Yeah.
He was. Yep. So
and hanging out at her school watching her.
Right. And then so when he, like that one instance and she goes to pick up the phone to call the police, that confrontation, and she like, and of course Vincent comes in, busts in, but she like, F you and give him the finger. Like she like, I don't give two fucks about you, motherfucker. Like this girl, she is so
she's like, I don't care about fearless. What she say.
Right.
Talking about her mom, she said, but me, I give no fucks about you. Sorry.
She's fearless. Like,
none.
She's an outlaw, right? A self-proclaimed outlaw. She don't give a fuck.
Right, because she did because she did her family history report and she found out that whatever Radley was an outlaw, so it was in her blood. So she used that to her advantage.
She needs a t-shirt made. I don't give a fuck because that is her theme song. I'm telling you. I'm an outlaw. I'm bad. I take care of business.
Yes.
I cut people out. At every corner.
13 years old.
Oh my God, that was outrageous.
And it was funny because I remember like some kids, we had a few kids in school that would say, some stuff like that. And you'd be just like, where? How? Why are you talking like that?
How are you talking? Like, who are you talking to like that? Because my mother would slap the taste out of my mouth
because they hear it in the house, So so you see that and you're just like, okay, now I get it. Like I had a little boy that would say, kindergarten BD class, shut up, bitch! Shut up, bitch!
Oh my God! Oh my God!
I was like, hello, James. So he said it one more time, and I took his little butt to the coat closet, and I said, I got one more time. You got one more time to call me a bitch. Why are you calling me a bitch? My daddy called my mama a bitch. Why I can't call you a bitch?
Oh, dang. Oh, no.
I am not your mother, and I don't know what goes on at home, but you can't do that, But I took him in the closet, in a little coat closet. I was like, this little boy, it had threw something at me that day, too. And we had a talk, and he kind of, revealed and calmed down. But I was like, damn, my self-esteem was low. I was like, I've been called a bitch like 3 times before noon.
Oh, my God. I get
Shit. Girl, I don't think I've ever been called that.
Oh,
not that many times, anyway.
Oh, that's wild. That is just rowdy and out of order. But, again, you're right. It's circumstances. Like her mother was at the bar. They at the bar. Right?
Right. And she threw that. Ooh.
Yes. Yeah. So,
and again, when we talk about this is how descriptive this man was in his storytelling. We saw every bit of this woman, this little girl's character.
And the craziest thing was earlier on, this little 13-year-old plots a crime and she gets away with it. She plots to set this guy's shit on fire, and she does it. She sets a business on fire and takes the tape on the way out. I
was gonna say not just that. She covers up her crime.
Yeah, and then she tossed the tape in the trash, and when he comes back, so that's the whole thing. Dark is looking for this tape, and I'm like, that tape is gone.
Man,
it's in the landfill.
All I saw was poof and then toss. I was just like, man.
She's Angela Bassett in that scene where she set her husband's clothes on fire and walked away.
That is all I saw. I'm sorry, Tamara. That's all I saw. It was like if she could smoke a cigarette, which she could, because she was smoking and drinking. All that girl needed was a square, right. And the story would have been complete. Yes. And she walked off into the sunset with cigarette in her mouth. It would have been a complete story.
And then she had to, of course, stop and give Brandon Rock his car a little once over, because she's like, you hit my mother? She like, I'm gonna get you. I mean, this girl, she's very vengeful.
Yeah.
She's very vengeful. She's angry. She's very angry.
Yeah. Angry that the guys all liked her mother and were mad, that they wanted to have relationships with her mother, but her mother didn't want those, or they hit on her mother and called her bad names. And she was, she just stood up for her family. She stood up for the people that she loved, and she loved hard. To be 13, so yeah.
I mean, if she doesn't heal from this, she will never, ever be in a long-term relationship.
Nope.
Because she will be the kind of person that will put a knife up to her boyfriend's throat and threaten him. She would be that person.
Exactly.
He'd wake up and she got a vase over his head. That's
you
her.
love me? No, I'm just kidding.
She wild. She wild.
Yeah, she is.
Wow.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like, I don't see how this girl is going to have a long-term relationship, a marriage, nothing.
No. She should not have kids.
No, even though she was a really good surrogate mom to her brother, she should not have children.
No, because she's a bad influence. Like, she said it even to the social worker, I think. Like, I'm losing him. Like, he's not like soft as like he used to be. He's different now. And the longer he's with her, which was probably the best idea why she chose not to be around him, because even when they were trying to be good, quote unquote, trying to get adopted, she could not hold her fucking tongue to save her life.
She tried.
She tried, and it couldn't happen. And he's looking at her like,
kept falling out.
And poor kid is looking at her like, why are you ruining this? Like, shut up.
We'll never get into a good home if you don't stop it. Yeah.
It's
like, we want cake. They got cake.
She like,
don't you want cake?
She like,
right? Basically. Give a fuck about no damn cake. Shit. Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's like, they got cake. And she was like, shh. Fucking cake.
Right.
Another thing I did like was her relationship with the little black boy. What was his name? Tyler? Tom. Oh. Yeah. It was so. He was like, I didn't seen an angel. And she punched him, and he was like, just to be touched by you was enough. And I was like, this little nerd is, I was like, this little nerd is in love. So I loved her.
Down.
Yeah, he did.
He didn't give up.
Nope. He was like, I could see through all that facade.
Yes. And it was cute. They went to the dance, but she's like, I'm not going to dance with you. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. Fine.
Yeah, it was such a cute relationship, and I loved, and like sometimes it's hard when when writers do this with the black white biracial, kind of relationship. But I loved this because here this girl is who's an outsider to her own people. And here you have this black boy who accepted her for who she was, regardless. And and he had a handicap. And even though she razzed him about that, not much, but he was like, he saw past that he knew she had a soft spot. And I really did love that love their relationship. And he gave her money when she wanted to catch the bus back home to California,
and his bike, take
and his bike, and I really did. I really loved their relationship.
Yeah, it was cute.
Yeah, it was just natural. It was just natural, because she was also an outsider, and she took up for she was like his protector. When he tried to fight and take up for her, and he was like, "Was I brave?" She's like, "Stupid."
Right. I think she was like, "Well, I guess you tried. I guess." I mean,
a little stupid. I don't know if I'll call you brave, but I really did. That was one of the things that I really liked about this is their relationship. Here you have a black guy who had a handicap arm. I don't know if it was like a smaller arm or whatever it was.
It seemed like it was like just by his wrist and hand. It was something. And he tried to explain what it was, and she like, "Shut up, I don't care."
Right. She's like, "I really don't give a care.
I don't care." And
here she is, this this outsider coming in, living with her grandpa, poor, raggedy clothes, blah blah blah, and them two met, and it was a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
He felt like she was God's gift. And she's just like, whatever. Come on, let's go.
She like, "Are you crazy?" She like, "Is anybody in this town normal? Like, what is wrong with all of you?"
She's like, "Everybody's crazy."
Like, you're all nuts.
Like,
she didn't even really I think Dolly was the only one who kind of slipped in, because she was like very I already know what this kid is about, so I'm whatever. I'm not going to treat her like a kid, basically.
Nope. Dolly was from the streets too, but it seemed like Dolly was from the streets, but she had a come up.
She used to razz her about her clothes. She used to be like, "What?
You kind of hookerish, but
Yes.
But I kind of like you."
She
she's like, "Yeah, I'm Dolly without the tits." I was like, "Yeah, she ought to come up."
Yeah.
So I really those relationships that he wrote in this story were very real, likable.
Yeah.
They were very likable. I did like the characters. Funny. There were funny moments.
Oh yeah.
So, but those are some of the things as we talk about and laugh about that I probably haven't done in a while in a mystery book,
especially a crime mystery book. And it's like, I'm like,
and
dying.
A male author,
yeah,
because sometimes they can be harsh.
Yeah,
right.
I was
a crime
just
fiction.
Laughing. I'm like, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
it had like a little bit of darkness to it, but it wasn't overly so, I don't think. Even though it was real stuff she was dealing with. Like, this is real life. Your mother just got beat up and stuff. But maybe it's because we didn't receive that beating and from her mother's point of view. Maybe it was,
That's probably true, that we seen it through the eyes of a child who was trying to protect her mother. So it was harsh, but it was also to the point where here you got this little kid trying to jump in, trying to beat up Dark. Who Dark? Here you got this little 13-year-old, and Dark is like Andre the Giant, the wrestler, versus her. So I think that contrast, that the author, the writing of the contrast of those two characters' size and personalities did a nice balance. So,
I think so.
Yeah, I do too.
He did a good job with a lot of it outside of our earlier complaints. So
Yeah.
Like you, I kind of have a hard time trying to decipher how I'm going to rate this book.
Yeah.
Because when it comes down to it, I feel like ultimately it's going to be as simple as would I recommend it or not. That is going to be the line of my rating, I think. Yeah. I'm not going to, well, let's rate it because we're coming up on 50 minutes. So let's go ahead and rate it.
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. I'll go first. I did struggle with my rating because, 3 it was okay. Would I recommend it? So I wind up rating it a 4. And I rated it a 4 because this is one of the books where I would say I recommend it if you like. You know what I mean? And I would give those little disclaimers, but it was a fun book, like our talk. Like I haven't, laughed about a good female character in a while written by a male author. So I did give it a 4. I would recommend it to certain people, not everybody, but I would recommend, like if you like a slow burn, baby, this is for you. If you're looking for a slow burn with lots of descriptive and narrative, this one is for you. And I think it was like I can't take away from him because he didn't do a whole lot wrong except for just give us a whole lot of minutia. So I gave it 4.
Okay, because I was looking up books similar to this because I can't even tell you a book like if you like X, you'll like this. I can't even
do a comparison.
No,
that you've read
exactly. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, I haven't read any of these books, and off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that was similar.
What did they compare it to?
And let's see. Let me go back to the top. The Donor by Claire Mcintosh. No.
And I've read some Claire.
The Secret Commonwealth by Philip Pullman.
Nope.
Perfect Kill by Helen Sarah Fields. I don't know.
Nope.
Yeah, no. There's a bunch of these. I've never even heard of half of these authors, to be quite honest. Well, and there are ones with small amounts of ratings. Let me be clear.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know. Someone made this list. It must be their opinion.
Yeah.
It was on Goodreads, but let's see what Taste Dive has to say.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
One of Us is Lying. Violet. Such a Fun Age was other readers have enjoyed. Yeah, these are some really out there books. Yeah, I don't want to say out there. Outside of my obscure books that are outside of my range. And it was, this is just one of those weird books where it was kind of funny to rate because it's like it's not the mystery that we read, but it wasn't bad. It had its moments.
But with that though, let me say this. Okay, so my rating, don't come for me, y'all, but my rating is a 3. My rating is a 3 because while after it was all said and done, I'm able to laugh and have a good time about it. And I was laughing during some of it.
It was still okay.
But it was still kind of painful. And I think about that and how the fact that I have to give so many caveats before recommending this book bothers me. And not only that is, while I enjoyed this for our purposes, I will not pick up another book by him. I know I won't.
Well, with that being said, gee.
I mean, I just have to be real. And
no, you're right. If you got to give that many caveats, it is just an okay.
Yeah. So for me, it's a 3. And I'm going to say to you, don't waste your money putting this on your shelf unless you fall into those caveats that Classy gave. Borrow it from the library if you're curious. Get it from a friend. Have them loan you the ebook on Amazon. But save the shelf space.
Yeah.
That's my
opinion. True. You know what? I will agree with that. I will totally agree with that. Because when we do our ratings, especially a 4, we don't have too many caveats. It's a 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I get it. I do. But you know what? And I was going on, this is something different that I don't read. But now that I think about it, and it hit me because I have a fellow bookstagrammer that her and I, kind of like you, like if I go on and I've read a book or I see a book that I want, I immediately scroll through my friends and I'm like, okay, so if Tamara liked it and so liked it, I'll probably read it. You know what I mean? So if I go on there and I give it a 4, am I living up to my 4 rating of what I
think if you pick this up, or any of my friends pick this up and they saw because they know I'm stingy with the stars.
Yeah.
I'm not an overly generous rater.
Yeah.
So if someone saw me have a 4, I think they would be disappointed unless they already read these kind of books.
Yeah. So it may be a 4 to somebody else, but for me, it is something outside of my wheelhouse. This is not something that I would probably read, and I'm not mad that we read this.
Yeah,
I think our selections have become more diverse. I'm glad that we were able to get this onto our repertoire. But the more I think about it, if I rate this a 4, and I think if my one friend sees that, she said, "You rated this a 4? How did you rate this a 4?" I blah 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 blah, and I was like, because I based it on XYZ. So okay, I'm gonna take back my 4, and I will give it a 3. Wasn't horrible because a 3 isn't horrible.
No, 3 is just, it's fine.
Right? It's okay.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yep. So yes, granted, we had some funny laughs, but it is not in my wheelhouse. So, okay.
All right. So that narrator, real fast. We talked about the narrator a lot, but I thought he was like an old man or something. And then when I looked it up, I'm like, he's not an old man. He just has an old man's voice.
It was so old school. I felt like this was like when narration began. Like old school, like CDs. Yes. Yeah. It was so blah.
Yes. There was nothing spectacular happening there.
No. There was, like I said, we couldn't even tell with the transitions.
Right.
Everybody sounded the same. Except for, I'm an outlaw. That was it. That was it. There was no transition. There was no differentiation in voices. So yeah, he lulled me to sleep.
Right.
A few times.
I'm like, I was sitting in my office.
You too?
I'm sitting here listening. My legs are back, and I'm like, "Oh, did
Girl,
I just
fall went through
asleep?
A couple of chapters. I had to rewind a couple of chapters because I had fell right to sleep. I was like, "See, I can't do this,"
and that made me mad because I'm like, "Dang it! I done wasted 15 minutes."
Exactly. So you know what I wound up doing? I had to get up, put my headphones on, and like walk and do stuff to stay awake and listen to the book, which is not a good thing, people.
Yeah. And you can't, but the thing is, it's a balance. You can't do too much stuff. Nope. Because when I had to do something that involved me reading something else or typing,
you had to stop it.
I had to stop because usually I can listen and do emails and other things. I'm like, wait.
Nope. Exactly. I had to do the same thing. I had to pay attention. I had to stay focused, and I did. Yep. So I wind up like doing a load of laundry, changing the sheets on my bed, that kind of stuff, so I can like stay awake.
Yeah.
Okay. The more I talk,
playing a like a bubbles game, where you match the colors. So I was doing that on my tablet at the same time so that I would stay active, but that's no thought, right? Right.
So you won't go, because I sure did. Last night I tried, I was like, I'm going to get this book done. I'm only going to have like 6 hours to do tomorrow.
Psych.
Girl, I got out and listened. I was like, God dog it. I fell asleep. 2 chapters away, if not 3, I've got.
Wow.
So yeah, and trying to rewind and find out where you last when you fell asleep is not fun.
No, it isn't. And okay, but I feel like our next book is going to be more familiar. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
So our next book
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. We've read Jennifer Hillier before.
Jennifer is fun.
Yeah, she's fun.
I read another book outside of the one we did, and I liked her, so I'm excited.
Okay, so it should be good. I think it's going to be back to like kind of our comfort zone of thrillers, mystery thrillers. And yeah, so I think we're done for today. What do you think, Classy?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so you guys, come and join us over in Shelf Addiction Official, or join us on the Book Club's app, and you can talk about these books with us there. And if book club isn't your thing, no worries. We will be right here on the podcast again next month with the next book, which is The Things We Do in the Dark.
Yes.
And so read up so you're not spoiled. And we'll catch you in the next episode. All right, take care, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction Podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven Network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.